So I guess we're back again for what I'm currently calling this solidarity across borders. That's
It's
kind
a good name for it. Eh?
of it occurred to me while I was doing the editing on our last discussion, and
Yeah, it's a snappy name, snappy title,
yeah, seemed all right,
and something we can all aim for, right?
That's right, for sure. There's no reason to not have solidarity with internationally.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I guess one of the first things that we wanted to talk about because was a post that I had for our last episode got backlash from somebody that I was considering a friend up until that point, and then they kind of like, I don't know, I guess didn't like me anymore. But so I'll read you the post and you can tell me what you think.
Go for it.
Okay, so it says the Qatar World Cup was built by migrants who had their passports taken, wages stolen, and bodies pushed past breaking in 50-degree heat. FIFA and Western sponsors knew the cost and cashed in anyway. That's the real price of spectacle.
Yeah, so all good so far. I agree.
Okay, and then it's just the YouTube link. So that's just that. That's the post. Does that strike you as clickbait?
No, I think that's a quite accurate description of what we were talking about. Quite true to reality. I'm not seeing an issue so far.
Okay, and would you say that pushes anti-Arab hate?
I'd be mystified as to how someone could take that conclusion from that post.
Okay. So my friend said, I listened to the entire episode and I feel that you clickbaited this with this post, as well as in your description for this episode. You barely touched on the talking points in this post. Also, when doing this, do you realize that you solidify Arab hate? I'm very disappointed that you would clickbait.
That is so... That's very bizarre, isn't it? I imagine you probably quite surprised yourself to have such a reaction to it,
yes.
right?
But because I try to approach these things with humility, and I was like, okay, well, I thought it was a fair description of that portion of the conversation. I'm sorry that I disappointed you. I'm sorry that you thought this was clickbait, but I didn't think that it was. I thought it was just this part of the conversation. And each day, so when I post an episode, I post one post every day with a different link, one for YouTube, one for Substack, one for Spotify. And each day has like a brief description of part of the conversation so that people can go in and be like, hey, that's what they're talking about for part of this episode. And I didn't see this as any different than any of that. So
no, it isn't different really at all. And there's several parts of this which are really sort of confusing me. How can someone say it's clickbait when that's exactly what was discussed in that section?
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought was, and like later in our discussion, she thought that we had explicitly blamed the Qatar government rather than the corporations that were doing the exploitation and withholding passports and holding paychecks and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I said, like, you're never going to get me to give a pass to the government that lets corporations get away with this shit.
Exactly.
But she replied again, like, no, you're misunderstanding me. Like, you only blamed the government. And in this, I don't see us blaming. I don't even think we blamed the government during that part of the episode.
No, me neither.
Like, we specifically even brought it back around to Western corporations that were doing the exploiting.
Exactly, right? Like, it's a really strange position because, like, for one, the idea that criticizing governments is somehow a criticism of their ethnicity or their nationality, I find a bit
right.
Like, I don't think that's in good faith, really, that criticism, because at no point are we saying, yes, the Arabic world is bad for this reason,
right.
Because like there's no connection to the fact they are Arabic. It's because they're capitalists doing shady things with workers, right?
Exactly,
like there's no mention of their nationality.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I've been pretty consistent throughout like the history of this show. I criticize governments of all countries. And
Exactly.
I really, really focus in on like Western nations, European nations. Like I'm not giving a pass to America or anything. Like it's not like or Canada. Like it's not like we're like, you know, being explicitly like, oh yeah, well it just so happens that all these Arab countries are corrupt and you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
like we don't do that. So
Like,
it's very
if I were
strange.
to put my, I guess, devil's advocate hat on, my sort of sociological
Sure.
analysis, um, there's definitely, from other sort of criticisms of the Middle East, been an element of like Orientalism, racism that
Yes.
sort of lingers, right? Like, there's definitely people who try and look at Middle Eastern governments and say, yes, look at that backwards part of the world. They're
Yes.
so awful because they're bad civilization and all the sort of racist, Islamophobic,
Yeah,
anti-Arab sentiment. But I think that is entirely separate to what we were doing, which was,
I
as
think
you've just
so.
said, right, like a proper analysis of the way governments and corporations mistreat people that they're given power over.
Right.
And as you've said, right, like it was one segment of many segments you've done, which have focused on many, many countries. Like it's a
Yeah.
really strange position to take.
Yeah. I just it does seem very odd to me, the reaction as a reaction to this segment and this post and this episode that we did, because again, like this was a very small part of the conversation, and we mentioned it in terms of relation to governments, uh, and corporations exploiting migrant workers. In fact, like we were talking about the exploitation of migrant workers across the world.
Exactly right. Qatar's just the place it happens to be in, right?
That's right.
Like,
In one instance, we were. Yeah. I think there's definitely something to be said about, like you say, the Orientalism, like the I think Ina Nice Mangoes does a really good job on her show of like taking down like the ex-Muslim community, because they really focus on like Muslim countries or countries with a Muslim religion as their basis, and they often spread like right-wing talking points in relation to those countries,
yeah,
but none of that racism that they do like gives like Saudi Arabia's government a pass when they do horrific shit, right?
yeah, exactly, right, exactly. Like, it's a really, in some ways, it's almost doubling down on said, like, or the idea that the governments of those nations are representative of the entire Arabian world, and that like to conflate the anti-Arabic or the Islamophobic criticisms with a government that happens to be in charge of a majority Muslim, majority Arabic
Right.
speaking nation, I think is really harmful. Actually, in some ways, actually makes it worse than if you like not made such a comment, because you're then almost setting up a defense for abusive governments to say, well, if you criticize us, then aren't you perpetuating hatred? When it's a very legitimate point to say you've mistreated thousands of migrant workers so you could host the World Cup.
Yeah. We get that kind of pushback from like when we're talking about Israel a lot, right?
Yeah,
Like the declaration is that Israel represents all Jewish people, and we're like, no, it doesn't. In fact, Israel is bad, and many Jewish people are against the state of Israel. And
exactly.
I would imagine that there are many Arab people in Qatar that don't appreciate the way the government participates.
Exactly. Like, can you imagine, like, you're a Muslim from Eritrea or Ethiopia or one of the like East African countries which these contracts get given out to, and you get sent via your employer to some horrible construction site where you've got limited breaks, you're working in like 40 degrees Celsius heat, and if you question your boss, gives you your passport back and sends you off back home, literally, because you've got no workers' rights. And you
Yeah.
try and say something about this, and then someone says, "Oh, well, you can't criticize that government because it's an attack on Arabic people." Like, it's absurd. It's really harmful, I think, and
Yeah.
does a disservice to people, as you've just said, who are stuck under these governments. A lot of the time, these governments as well are quite autocratic, so it's not even really it's not even as though it's a proper government. It's like a monarchy almost in many of these nations and Emirates.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's, yeah. I mean, I don't mean to sound defensive. I probably sound a little defensive, right? But this conversation escalated to the point where like I was like feeling like this was not about criticizing the actual content of the episode anymore. It was like uh almost like it felt like I was being targeted or vilified by this person for some other reason. And I don't know, it just felt off. And I didn't, I tried throughout to be like, not defensive. But it's sometimes it's pretty hard, right? When you're like, well, no, that's not how I.
Exactly. I think when we, especially as well, because there's so many like videos and content creators and people who will just put out hateful stuff and not bother to research and say slurs when we're talking about various ethnicities and countries.
Right.
So when people like ourselves, who like, because no one's perfect, right? And like you would hope that if you had made a mistake, like you'd have a conversation about it and be able to, in good faith, work out what it was. But when you don't, because I remember that conversation we had, it was not, no slurs, no hateful rhetoric, clearly a legitimate criticism of a genuinely bad government and genuinely bad corporations mistreating people, right? So when that is glossed over for some sort of bad faith criticism, seemingly, I think it's natural to feel a bit upset and cross about how a conversation goes when we're thinking about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's very strange, but I wanted to address it because it was our conversation, and the way I remembered it after editing it, I listened to it multiple times through the editing process, and I never got the impression that we were even particularly harsh to the Qatar government. Like we definitely brought it back to like the Western corporations, Western countries that profited off of this slave labor that existed.
Exactly.
Slave labor that I must say was well documented. Like it's not like this is something that's on, one or two media sites that you and I might just have agreed with already, right? Like we weren't doing confirmation bias, I don't think. This was
not at all.
Multiple human rights organizations were talking about this at the time.
I mean,
including
even
Amnesty International.
Yeah. And like even beyond just like human people who actively investigate this sort of thing, like the BBC reported it as early as when the bid was first made in 2010, right? Like when they were confirmed to be the hosts of the World Cup, it was well documented that countries in the Middle East who receive lots of migrant workers have a terrible record of colluding with corporations to treat them like essentially slave labor, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that like it's some fringe left-wing conspiracy theory it's really has no substance, I think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I also and I had so we kind of touched on it a little bit during that discussion about like the way that many Western media outlets framed protests against the LGBTQ discrimination that happens in Qatar under the laws in that state. And I've had many discussions with people outside of the show about that and how often like I will not defend a state that discriminates against LGBTQ plus people. But I can also be like, sometimes the media frames things in a way that makes it seem like unrealistic or out of sync with the actual practices of the day to day. And like maybe, and I know like Western leftists, we often will misinterpret the way that certain places and actions are going. Like I see a lot of it with Africa, right? African states get called various things by Western leftists without all the facts. And that's something that we do sometimes. But I just don't think that we were like, I don't think that I don't think we were lacking nuance. I don't think we were like being particularly bigoted in any sense. And I mean, if other people who watch that very brief mention of Qatar. Like we've talked about it, talked about that longer now than we did in that episode. If people have more feedback, I'm open to hearing more feedback, but I just don't see like it being framed as the way it was portrayed by my now I guess ex-friend.
Yeah, a strange one. I mean, hopefully this person will, I don't know, maybe reevaluate their opinion. But I think life will move on. I feel like if a third party looks at the criticism and then watches it back, as you've just said, they will also probably be a little bit mystified as to where this is coming from.
I kind of think so.
To look at it another way as well, I imagine with the upcoming World Cup in Canada, America, and Mexico, we'll be making some of the same criticisms, given the shadiness and awfulness.
That's right.
Horizon,
and I absolutely support like movements to block like the Olympics in various places and like the World Cup in various places, because often these things are damaging to the people that live there, and they exploit labor in a variety of ways, and they're deeply problematic. So I just don't see it. You know, we weren't particularly harsh on Qatar, I don't think, but
I don't think so either.
But so we're not going to just talk about that. I don't want to be like, I'm not a bad guy the whole time.
A slight hour.
Yeah. So let's talk about you did 2 live streams pretty recently. Yeah.
Yeah, two recent live streams, back to back actually. So it's interesting, obviously, as you know, as people will know, I talk to quite a lot of people of a slightly less left-wing persuasion to quite right-wing, and even probably a few who, whilst they might not admit it, would probably fit quite close to far-right views. But mostly, I'd say, like, conservatives and right-wings, all the way up to, I guess, social democrats, you'd say, is like sort of the people that I would debate as such.
Right.
But no, so the first one I did, because I watch quite a lot of stuff from these sources to try and I like to keep an eye on what is being said in right-wing circles, because it's quite, whilst the content is often wrong and misleading and not well researched, it's interesting to know what the arguments you'll have said to you are, so that you can know how to respond to it. So in my research, I came across a channel from someone who said he'd left the left. He said he was fed up with the themes he'd felt on the left. He said that whilst he had left-wing principles still, he couldn't abide by the behaviour, mannerisms, themes of the modern left, and so found himself sympathetic to now
sounds
more
like Dave Rubin.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? And especially when he says that in sort of inciting, like the revelatory incident was the Charlie Kirk shooting.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, yeah. In fact, so he said.
So he recently left the left.
Yes, yeah. I think he said it was on the cards for a while, but this has been like one of the eye openers for him, supposedly.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So obviously, you see these videos and think, okay, this might make for an interesting conversation. So I left a comment, and normally a lot of people, because YouTube is not the best for notifying you when a comment is made. So quite a few times I've come back to one of my videos and seen a comment that's been left that I would not have known had I not clicked on it. So I thought I'll leave this comment, and maybe a few weeks' time I'll get a response. So we'll leave it for now. Instead, like minutes later, I get a notification, and the guy's like, "Oh, I'd love to have a chat with you. When can we get it sorted? Email me here." Okay. So I was like, okay, this is moving a bit quicker than I thought. So go to my email, send him an email again. I'm thinking, well, he said send him an email. He's probably a busy guy. He's probably got a lot on. What he's on.
Everybody is, right?
Exactly, right. And so the email I get back, and it's like, yeah, I'd love to send me a link and we can do it right now. And I'm like, okay, wow, this is moving quickly. I mean, thankfully, the timing of this, like, it was late in the evening. It's the weekend coming up. Like, I've got time this time. So I think, okay, well, let's strike a iron sort. Let's get this going. And so I'm suddenly on a call with this guy. So he's a Scottish man. He lives in Canada now, but so in your neck of the
Okay.
woods. Don't know exactly where, but
Somewhere over here.
somewhere. I mean, Canada's quite a big country, right? So
Yeah, that's
there's a
right.
lot of places to look. But no, he said he's lived in quite a few countries actually.
Okay.
But what I found fascinating was that because I sort of made the title a nice open one, left and right wing values. Because in my mind, I'm thinking you're saying you still have lots of left wing views, and he said himself like he still likes the idea of healthcare and people paying tax like to a fair degree and such. So I'm thinking, well, where's the deviation from the left?
He's just anti-woke.
Yes, pretty much. Because within a few minutes of this conversation starting, we're suddenly talking about gender and sex and trans people, and I'm thinking in my head like, oh no, not again, because like, I've realised so many people who've left the left have done so because of their, I guess, inbuilt transphobia, right? Like their inbuilt sort of fear of I don't even know, like just the scientific realization that society is more complex than man and woman. Like,
that's right. A few years ago, it was like the people who left the left were like, there's no such thing as white privilege, or toxic masculinity is a mean way to say that sometimes men are bad. So like, as you go, like throughout the years, different people have come up with different reasons to leave the left, but it's always related to like that kind of like identity politics kind of viewpoint.
I mean, I suppose it shows the importance of intersectionality, right? Like the idea that you can't just, I don't know, focus on economics. You have to think about how the social fabric of life affects people, and especially when we live in countries which have discriminated against and legally classified people negatively for generations, right?
For sure.
And if you look at, so the video is about an hour of us talking, and at least half of it is about trans people and about people's gender. And like I always feel a bit self-conscious because like I intentionally sort of set my videos up with like a dramatic like Owen McDonald versus whoever. In my mind, it's not that I'm trying to be like vitriolic and aggressive and such. That's just sort of a framing so we can talk about things. But I would never want it to come across like I'm seriously putting trans people's identities and status up for debate, as though it's like some will they, won't they gain the rights? Will it be something we agree on or not? Like in my mind, it's I never sort of go into it with that mind. So like when it's brought up within minutes, like it's a bit frustrating because I don't want to give someone the impression that they can just come to me and say, yeah, let's debate trans people. Because like to think of it another way, if someone was like, yeah, I believe in eugenics theory, let's come on the show, let's have a chat. Like exactly, right? Exactly. So in my mind, there's always an element of concern. I do think it's important to talk about it openly because for what like is important, a lot of people unfortunately have inbuilt transphobic views. So whereas like for as loud as they are, like the sort of race science isn't really like a widely held, like people largely know that racism and race isn't really something that's legitimate. Whereas I feel even though most people probably aren't transphobic in the sense that if a trans person, if they knew someone was trans, they're not going to think, oh yes, send them off to jail or whatever. Like, there's still inbuilt assumptions and beliefs about trans people which are sadly mainstream and are harmful and built out of a bigoted sort of base, if that makes sense.
Like even I've had conversations and I have friends that I think, while I don't think that they're like transphobic, right, they often will say like, I don't get it. And I think a lot of people are coming at least from that perspective, and like then you can have a conversation from there. But then it becomes like transphobic when they're like, I don't get it, therefore they don't get to be who they are.
No, exactly. And I think that's part of the issue. A lot of people are given the invitation to reflect critically on one of their views. So if you haven't previously heard of intersex people,
Right.
and someone says, actually, what we consider biological sex isn't as simple as just you are 100% male or 100% female. There's actually quite a lot of ways that someone can fall outside this traditional binary. People take that and think, if I have been saying this before, what does that mean of me now? And then
Right.
rather than take that moment to reflect and maybe update their opinions, it's like, no, it's all wrong. Just put it out of the way. And then you get into that rabbit hole of, oh, the left has gone woke. It's gone all PC. They can't say the scientific truth. And then you get people who make a YouTube video saying they've left the left.
It seems like quite the dramatic slide. Like, I remember I've had so many conversations, like just in person, right, where people they like say they don't get like that people are often express themselves or live as a gender other than what they were born as. Uh, and when you talk about like, okay, but you know that there's like intersex people, like gender isn't like this black and white binary thing that is one or the other all the time. And they're like, yeah, but that's like super rare. And I always point out like they're as or more common. Intersex people are more common than redheads, actually, like percentage wise of the population. Like, and like, it seems like, how do you get from like that kind of conversation to like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm abandoning all my previous principles because I can't accept that intersex people exist, or like I can't accept that people change genders. Like,
Yeah. I think as with any of these sort of social discriminations, there's a lot of bad faith media that goes with it, right? So like, let's say you hear about the fact that there's non-binary people who don't find the labels for their gender can fit neatly with male and female.
right,
And then because they're then sort of in this wavering grey area, there's lots of very right-wing media that exists to capture this sort of uncertainty and turn it, redirect it to scare stories. So women's sports is a really common one. The image that is created is, this man pretended to be another gender so he could go and beat up a woman boxer or destroy a female football team. And it's like, other than the fact that it's divorced from reality, because like this isn't happening at all.
right.
Like, it ignores scientific research on trans sports people who aren't like superhuman soldiers.
Right.
And is also like, I think it's unpeel another layer as well. What is sport but unfair physical advantages? Like, if I have a sprinting race of Usain Bolt, like obviously Bolt has trained to be a professional athlete far more than I have. But he's also 6'6", and like he's got a better lung capacity. There's some things which he has which are just gonna make him have an easier time, right? Like,
that's
like
right.
to an extent, it's luck. Like, so the whole like scare over sports is obviously built on lies, but also like the real criticism would then be had at the sport itself, because what are you doing but testing the physical limits of certain human beings?
Aren't tall basketball players just cheaters?
Yeah, right. I mean, the example I always think of is Michael Phelps, who is like by far not only the most successful swimmer, but the most successful Olympian. Like, he's just got so much success, and he has hands with more like almost webbed effect between his fingers, so there's more resistance to push the water back when he swims. He's got this sort of weird skeletal shape that like has his arms and legs sort of more able to move in a way that's beneficial in the water. He's tall as well. He's quite a big person, so like that is also going to help too.
Almost exactly born to swim.
Exactly, right? But no one's saying to him, "Oh, Michael, could you come back for a second? Because you're not
it's
really
unfair, right?"
Yeah, exactly. It's only when it questions things like patriarchy and cis heteronormativity that suddenly this becomes an issue. And another angle that affects people as well is the racial element. There's so many black female athletes who get told, "No, you're not a real woman. You've got too much testosterone. Therefore, we're going to ban you. You're too man-like," which is so obviously like a bad faith argument. But so many athletes, like Caster Semenya is the famous one, who, despite being a very good athlete is basically banned from competing at serious tournaments
because of the way that her body naturally produces extra hormones or whatever, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
And
Like,
yeah, no, it is it's I guess I don't know. It's something wrong with the way the sports are framed, right? Is it not?
well, it's very frustrating because essentially we only have this much focus on people like this because of inbuilt transphobia and bigotry in society. Even the fact that like because like it's always tricky thinking like why are sports gender separated, right? And the instinctive answer you'd give is that men are taller, faster, stronger, etc. than women. And yeah, if you look at the athletes right now, yes, there's a bit of a gap, but the greater, I think, analysis, the stronger line of analysis is that we live in a society which literally barred half the population from playing the sport, which said,
right.
no, women are bound to the house and should not be engaging in the activities of men. Therefore, because we're animals, but we're also social animals. So if we've not put anything into sports for women for generations, of course there's going to be an advantage, especially when sports are professionalized and we're still like there's so many Olympic sports which have only been for male and female athletes like this century, which is
right.
I didn't even realize how recent some of them were. Like it's actually quite staggering.
Yeah, I believe it. I don't have the I guess research to back it up at this exact moment, but I do remember for most of my life, like there was like so like growing up, we played hockey, boys played hockey and girls played ringette. And it wasn't until much later that girls were playing hockey and then they still weren't playing hockey in the same same stuff as boys, like it was still separated by gender, right?
Yeah. And there's also like an element of I think sports analysis which can be done as well. Like so tennis, for instance, male players at the Grand Slams play to five, so first to three sets, whereas female players play to two. But the result of that is that men have to train in a way that makes them able to last a game that might last a longer period of time, might go through all five sets. Female players don't have to play for that same amount of time. So why would they? So they're not going to have the same tests put onto their like muscles, their stamina, and such.
Right.
And if you're the coach for a female athlete as well, you're not going to be playing the male players. So you're going to be putting yourself into training regimes to beat the best female player. So it's like it's like to put it another way, if you are like a rally driver in like a sorry, I'm switching to cars all of a sudden. If you're a rally driver and you've got like a race going through some country lanes and stuff, you're not gonna test your car's stats out against an F1 car, which is on a track, right? Like it's different categorizations. So the whole thing needs more analysis than just you're putting trans woman, which is a man, into this female sport, and it's going to be like it's silly. It's silly, is what we're saying.
If you're going to go with a car analogy, like it's like taking that F1 and turning it into a stock car or a NASCAR, and then saying, "Oh, okay, but now it used to be an F1, so it can't be in this race."
Yeah, exactly. Good analogy, actually, because like it's silly, isn't it? Like the idea that because we once thought of it as an F1 car, it will now always be an F1 car forever and ever.
Right.
And it's like even with any car, right? Like if you found out that your Vauxhall was once a Ford, like it doesn't matter. It's a Vauxhall now. It's like no one cares unless you insert some silly ideology into it, which makes it influenced. But no, going back to the lovely man I was speaking to the other day, there was also, I suppose, an element of like, I guess, fear, almost like the idea that there's going to be some ramification for people in society if trans people are able to. I mean, the common one is using women-only spaces, which I find obviously is just inherently transphobic, right? Because you are literally just saying, no, you are a trans woman, you cannot use this space,
right? Like you are not. It is like the statement is now you're not a woman, right? Like that's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And like then also, so you go ahead. Sorry,
I was just gonna say trans women in women's only spaces makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's always interesting as well. It's the sort of policing of women as part of the patriarchal expanse too, right? Because like they never, because the same logic, like a trans man would also have to leave the men's room and go to the women's room, right? But they never say that because idea of because the trans men are men, right? So the idea of sending someone into a women's space is the obvious thing that's going to cause more of a concern. But there's also an element of just like, I don't think they're thinking about what is actually going on in these spaces. Like the idea that, because it's always really crude, horrible, like focusing on their bodies and saying, well, they can't have this there. But the issue, like if someone was actually like waving their private areas like around in one of these spaces, that would be an issue no matter who it was and no matter what the space was. Like that is that person being inappropriate. Like that's not, we must now call into question every single transgender person's right to be able to use a space. That's this individual is clearly needs to be sort of asked to leave premises or something. Like, but it's never thought about like to any more seriousness, because the only point of this argument, when it's boiled down, is to remove trans people from a section of life to get them out of the public sphere, which is a big position, of course.
Yeah, exactly. It's like obviously in the United States, the big thing has been bathrooms, right? Like they don't want trans women in women's bathrooms. And it's like you say, like how many people are going in there and doing, I guess my position has always been that like there have been trans women going into women's bathrooms for decades and decades and decades, and you didn't know. Because you didn't realize that trans people even existed until the last fucking 10 years.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
So now you're afraid of a thing you never even knew was happening, and nobody was harmed for however long, like many, many, many decades, and now you imagined a harm because you can't take your head out of that space where if you were in there, you'd be oogling the women or whatever. Like, I don't know.
It's exactly that, isn't it? Like it is that manufactured right-wing insertion of an idea, right? Like it's the same. It's the same as with all their like with the idea that in a sociology class, white people are taught to hate themselves, and they're taught that black people are superior. Like, no, it's a sociology class, and they're teaching about societal racism, and they have done for decades and decades. But now, all of a sudden, that you've been told to pay attention to it, now we can insert these fake points about scare stories and such. And it's the same with trans people and all these issues, because it's nothing new. And it struck me as really interesting that, and it's a bit ironic that we're now spending quite a bit of time talking about this, like I did with this individual, a few days ago. But it sort of animates to me that there is still a problem, I suppose. I don't want to say a problem on the left, because it's like a bit over, but like a societal problem of people being asked to think critically about maybe some views they have, which could be updated, maybe some things they take for granted, which could be thought about in a more modern, critical way. And instead of just turning inwards and thinking, let's give this benefit of the doubt, let's read this a bit more, let's have a look at what people who are belonging to these identities are saying. They're like, no, it can't be me. I've got to just push all this away. And even, I mean, I don't want to I don't know this person too well, so I don't want to be like too, I don't want to say anything personal such, but like, I don't know, like I could never imagine myself like being told actually this, I don't even know if he was told it, right? But someone saying, there's a bit more to this scientific area that you haven't thought about yet. And then me saying, right, it's time to leave the left and time to, time to change my.
You mean I didn't know everything? I guess I better abandon all my values.
Yeah, no,
No,
exactly.
yeah, I don't. Again, I don't know this guy either. Like, it's not like I know his ins and outs of his mentality. But it does seem like really strange to me that you would ever leave the left instead of like, isn't maybe maybe it's because of the way I entered the left, because I was a right winger for a long time back. I mean, it's going on now. What, 2011, I think, was the last time I would have been called a conservative. So it's like looking at 15 years ago, basically. But so it strikes me as odd that you would ever, as a left wing person, approach this thing that you don't know enough about with that adamant refusal to learn about it. Where, like I say, because when I entered the left, it was through realizing how little I knew and how I had to learn and approach new subjects and new information with a level of humility and
Mm.
and willingness to adopt new information.
Yeah,
So,
like it's
so
interesting because like I my journey to sort of where I am now, like I'm very fortunate. I've got quite a progressive family, certainly immediate family. Mum was a nurse, so you're sort of when you're and obviously in the UK we have universal healthcare, but austerity has sort of put it in the crosshairs of the
right,
like for years now, American corporations have been slowly trying to like sort of siphon off bits and influence conservative politicians to push the case for privatization a bit more and more each year.
yeah,
So like, I've always been quite left wing, and it's never really like been a case that I like would have called certainly never called myself conservative, but even like I've always been quite left wing. However,
okay,
I remember I remember distinctly even thinking, yeah, I'm quite left wing, but maybe not far left, maybe not socialist kind of thing.
right,
Yeah, got to do things in the system. And then you like when I was actually when I was 18 actually, um, you read more and you read about like the history of the UK. I think I distinctly remember it was about the World Bank and IMF that some of
oh
the things
yeah,
distinctly got me going. Because you're just reading about how essentially corporations through states have been basically ruining the livelihoods and well-being of countries around the world, basically
yeah,
stopping like I mean this is on top of years of colonialism and empire and such, right? But actively um, drowning these nations in debt and
yeah,
enriching themselves through the commodities of other nations. And
yeah,
it's like, how can you support a system which basically is set up to enrich powerful people and
yeah,
keep everyone else down? Like this is literally, it's not even hidden. It's the open policy almost of these organizations. You're giving someone a loan which they'll never be able. How are they going to pay back this loan of like
right,
hundreds of millions of dollars? Um, and it's like, of course, they're going to have to default on it and then need another loan to do it, and have
yeah.
to privatize even more of their industry for some American corporation to buy them cheap.
And of
Like,
course, yeah, because the IMF likes to be like, oh, yeah, we'll loan you the money, but you have to enact these policies if you want that money.
yeah,
And like the example that always springs to my mind is South Africa, and how, in my view, the South African government could have said fuck off to the IMF, right? Like, but because they wanted to participate in the global economy, they needed to have an influx of outside cash. And that meant that they had to follow certain policies, which kind of destroyed much of like Mandela's
yeah,
initial goals when when coming to power after apartheid.
exactly. And obviously, all the right wing think tanks and such were like, well, you see, that's what happens when you're socialist, and it's like,
No,
because
man.
anything that's not in service of overtly right wing politics is socialist, even when it's
Right,
like
right.
Joe Biden. But yeah, this
Yeah,
was my one of the key things I think, which sort of made me think, yeah, actually, I'm going to call myself a socialist or something adjacent to that,
right.
and at least say, yeah, the current way of doing things isn't right. And ultimately, that came from being willing to sit and read and listen.
Right.
And I do think there's an element of, I suppose, privilege there, right? Because whilst my family, we're not like super rich or anything, but you know, I never went hungry. I never had to.
Right.
Yeah, the way we do university, I'm still, you know, have to take out loans to afford to come to university, but it's a bit less predatory than in America, where like they'll come and chase you down if you haven't like paid it back
Right.
within a certain amount of time. Like it will be taken out of my future salary when I graduate. So you know, like it's easier for me to have the access to the education and the reading and stuff to be able to
Right.
learn why like being left wing sort of needs to be paired with quite anti-capitalist stuff as well. But the point still I think is there that because this person as well, like I mean, I'm assuming a little bit, but he's not in destitution. He's not like
Right.
in like given the fact that, and he's also quite a bit older than me. Like there are plenty of, especially someone who's already left wing and was saying that like he's been in protests and like been in situations where they're sort of engaging in quite left wing discourse. It is surprising to me that someone can just say out and out, I want to leave the left and I don't feel I can be in that circle anymore. Essentially, on the basis of what a few trans scare stories almost.
Yeah, like exactly. It's like all the things that you just laid out, all this economic information about the injustice of the economy and how right-wing governments and organizations have propped up the rich and taken from poorer countries. But I'm gonna say that none of that matters anymore because I don't want trans women in the bathroom with women, and I just can't relate to that.
Because like it's so strange to me because like he even said like I still agree with like healthcare and all these issues, but it's somehow been detached from, as you just said, like the transgender people, and then also like the because the other sort of driving force of it was the Charlie Kirk stuff, which
right.
if we read
because
between
we're awful, right?
yeah. He said so. The reaction to his death was some eye opener for him, but it's so curious to me because I mean, if we're reading between the lines here, likely consuming some of the content about because he that's another thing as well. Actually, he said that there were lots of trans people who sort of had more of a conservative take on things, and he cites like Blair White and Buck Angel and a lot of other people, and it's like. Again,
no, not left wing people.
Yeah, exactly, right. Like the keys in the word conservative, right? And if we use even just looking at economics, if you're paid millions by some nebulous right wing funding, be it Republicans, be it Daily Wire-esque organizations, even just individually wealthy people who want to hear more right-wing news, like of course you're going to like tailor your views. You can see especially someone like Blair White, she starts out as like just some run-of-the-mill like maybe things aren't a bit too left-wing for me, which obviously we could disagree with, but like some people are going to have different reactions to how trans identity is discussed online, and now it's just like repeating anything that Fox News says just from a trans person. Like it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to say, and to even just say, oh yes, well here are some trans people that agree with a more right-wing perspective. Therefore,
right?
Is it really transphobic? To me, that's just such a naive like way of looking at it.
Yeah. I don't know. A right-wing trans person who is reciting trans phobic talking points is still, transphobic, right?
Exactly.
Like it's like what's her Candace Owens, right?
Yes.
Like she's racist against black people. I don't know how else to say that.
She is awful. I think she might be one of the worst ones. Just because, like,
she is,
I don't know where she like originated from. Because like with a few of YouTube ones, like I've seen like obviously I don't really watch them, but like you sort of see how they've evolved into like where they are now. Media figures you've like sort of keep track of. One day, like Candace Owens just appeared on my timeline. It's like there's just this awful person who just says the most contrarian right-wing stuff like all the time. And it's like it's
If
been that way for years. There's been no like change in how she's engaged with
yeah,
anything for
if
ages.
I recall correct, like I don't know her actual origin story, but if I recall, there was a time when she posed as like a Black Lives Matter activist, and she said some really like shitty things that and then portrayed it as though it was a Black Lives Matter activist who was saying those shitty things. And
Gosh.
I don't think she ever really believed in Black Lives Matter as a movement, but I think that that's kind of where I first started seeing about her, like
Uh,
2015 or something.
yeah. I mean, she's definitely someone who is in it for the spotlight and not like even this stuff with she's being I don't know what the verdict is yet. I don't know how far along the case is, but she's been taken to court by the Macron family, the current leader of France, because she won't stop calling the president's wife a man, like
Right.
and she's got this like dramatic social media post where she's like, I'll keep calling you it because it's the truth and I'm gonna win this battle and fight for free speech. And it's like it's just so like she's such an awful like way to engage in anything, but it keeps eyes on her, keeps her in the spotlight, so
Yeah.
of course she will keep doing it. And especially in America too, where she'll be hit with probably some sort of fine, but her benefactors have been funding her saying awful stuff for years anyway, so it's like she's got stuff in reserve to pay off something like that.
Yeah, like I know she had a falling out with like Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire because she was anti-Israel, but that's because she's an anti-Semite, not because she's pro-Palestine.
Yeah, and even that, like it's like all wrapped in such false, like faux. But because I mean, Ben Shapiro is awful, but he is clearly like someone with religious convictions, which explains
he's got principles, right?
Yeah,
at least on some level.
They're bad principles in many ways, but they're still principles. Candace Owens, I feel, would like when like in a what's the word I'm looking for? In a nice timeline where Trump maybe is prosecuted for some of his crimes and there's some sort of justice for all the horrible stuff happening.
Right.
I can see Candace Owens turning all of them and suddenly doing a complete heel turn and suddenly being like, having the same vitriol and sort of media frenzy, but for the other way. Yeah. Whereas someone like Shapiro would, I feel, go down with the ship almost. Like,
yeah, to some degree. I think, like, I was listening to, I think it was the Posting Through It podcast, and they were talking about, like, Laura Loomer. And I see her as similar to Ben Shapiro in that she has certain principles, but in a way that means, like, her main goal is attention. and self-promotion, right?
Was she the one who wore like the sort of faux star, like like the Jewish Star of David on her, like as though she were a victim of the Holocaust?
Yes, yeah. When she got her blue tick removed off of Twitter, she compared it to the Holocaust, and then when she got banned off Twitter, she compared it to the Holocaust again. And then she, like, before it was Elon Musk's thing, right?
Yeah.
She, like, locked herself to the doors of the Twitter building in New York as, like, a publicity stunt. And, like, it's like,
awful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so I, in a sense, I do think that they all, except maybe Candace Owens, like, there's some degree of principle to each of them. But also, they're all about the attention is kind of the whole thing.
And the money that it generates. And Kirk was the same, right? Because, like, he, obviously, awful person, as we've sort of discussed before. Whole list of quotes. That was the thing, actually, as my opponent the other night was, another one who said, the context, the context for many of his quotes is actually less inflammatory than what I've been led to believe. And it's like, well, is it? Because I've heard the context of many of them, and it's all the same stuff. It's all in service of the same nasty, awful points. Like, he was a really hateful individual.
Like I don't see them being like, I've heard the context of most of these things, like, and I don't see how it doesn't reduce, like, the fact that he's he said that he thinks like he would second guess black pilots if he's
Yeah.
on a plane. Like, no matter the context there, that's a racist thing to say.
Exactly. Right?
Like, what do you? Of
Like,
course he's qualified. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing the job.
It's exactly what I said in the stream the other day. And like an hour of just comments like that. Like, how is that? Can you imagine, like, if you were in court and your defense was like, well, the comments he's made are out of context. Here's the full context, and like you would be horrified if that was what they played. Like just a full hour of more of the same comments. Like,
yeah, that's still racist, man.
Like, and so to ignore again, it's sort of why I sort of think, well, you say you've got these you've got left wing principles, but like what? Like, surely if you have those principles, your view of someone like Kirk, like, would be,
you can't just be like neutral, right?
Yeah.
Like,
because like even if you took out all the, I mean, obviously all of it is interlinked, right? Like you can't say the things he does and not sort of look at the overlapping racism, sexism, transphobia, etc. But even if you wanted to ignore that and just look at purely economic things, someone who is that ardently interested in the free market and deregulation and wants to gut various state responsibilities and get rid of the welfare state, that is also someone who's abhorrent, right? Because they know what will happen to, the way they speak about poor people in cities is so disgusting. And like, that is something which should make you think, this person is not a nice man. This person has thoughts which leads to harm to many people in society. Even like, just because they're running around campuses saying, debate me. And debate, by the way, is in the biggest air quotes, because like his version, that's the other thing that really annoys me. See, because like people say, he's this big debater. Like, no, if you like debate someone, you're sitting and talking and hearing their ideas, and it should be where you go through each one and sort of rigorously actually explore what the merits of it are, not invite some student on, shout over them before they can finish one sentence, and then shuffle them off with the next person to come on to like the queue that you've formed to do it. Like, he wasn't interested in debate. So the whole thing really falls apart. And then the the idea as well that like, the left killed him and the left have mocked his death. Like, firstly, no, there's no evidence to say like this person, it's an ongoing case, right? Secondly, even no matter what this person was, like the left isn't some like big organized group, is it? Like, there's no like a memo one day, right? This guy's got to die. Like,
it's like, so they do that, right? Like, if there's any chance that some violence was carried out by a leftist, it's all leftists, right? Like, and we're all terrorists, and we're all out to destroy America, which I am. So good on you. But if it's like a series of abortion doctors murdered by right-wingers who are explicitly carrying out a right-wing Christian nationalist perspective and say it outright and write manifestos, they will still always disavow that and say, well, I'm not responsible for that. Like, they can never be responsible or held accountable for the things they call for, yet they always want us to be held accountable for things we didn't call for.
Exactly. Right.
It makes me crazy.
It's infuriating. And especially when, like, even in those examples where it's like the evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates that like domestic terrorism from right-wing people is staggeringly high. Like school shootings, just shootings in general. The fact that America is such a violent country too plays into it as well. Like, you have a country where, I mean, the conversation about guns is one that is complicated. I think it's like there is a not trap, but sort of the liberal response of just get rid of all the guns, I think is a bit misguided. But at the same time, I live in a country that doesn't have guns for sale, and at my school we never had to do any of the stuff that we have to do at an American school, right? So I'm not going to deny. There's a point.
And Canada's kind of in between. Like, we're so close to the United States that we have a lot of that kind of gun culture mentality, but also you can't just get it without all kinds of background checks and this and that and the other thing. So like, we also don't generally have like children doing school shooting drills.
Exactly. Like, But the point like still stands that Cook was someone who, one of these gun absolutists. Yeah,
Yeah,
he even said people. What was the quote? Some deaths are necessary so we can keep our Second Amendment
that's
rights.
right.
But doing the typical sort of conservative thing, they're happy for it when it's like off over there. When they don't have to think about it. They
Yeah,
weren't expecting it to be themselves that end up getting shot. And I
that's
think
right.
that even sort of the frenzied hysteria that these people love to cultivate, because like the idea as well that logical debate was what was going on in his stuff. It's all frenzied hysteria. It's all like the most hyperbolic, violent, nasty attitudes, and a
Yeah,
very unpleasant media scene that is cultivated as a result of it. So,
yeah,
like, they have this, but like, if we're really being honest, the tools, and the sort of seeds that were laid that leads to people meeting in violent ends are elsewhere than some left-wing people criticizing him online. And then what I find really frustrating too is that, the idea that he, this guy that I'm speaking to has left for, or is disillusioned with the left because people were making fun of, people were, I don't know, posting memes about Kirk and stuff.
right,
Well, where's the responsibility for anything Cook said over the decade he was,
right.
like,
Yeah,
if you live a horrible life where he basically called people to lose their rights and support an open fascist, what do you expect? Like, what do you expect? People are
yeah,
they're not
that's
gonna be
right.
like, oh, yes, let's have a minute's silence for someone who wanted me dead. Like,
Yeah,
so
no, that's right.
mystifying. And it was only an hour of him, of sort of conversation with him. But whilst I would speak to him again, and he wasn't, it's always tricky. He wasn't unpleasant to speak to, and I don't, I don't think he was. I mean, the fact he had some left wing values meant that he wasn't like a complete monster. But you can just see how
Right.
this sort of person, like, really
Mm,
could do a bit more critical reflection, because
yeah,
there's some other things going on here than just, the left has gone a bad way. Like, I think he needs to look a bit closer to home. Um,
yeah.
and then
No,
that's only the first of the first people that I spoke to.
right. Yeah, you still had another one.
Yeah, so this one was so I'm in a like a Discord server or two,
Okay.
and there's people in them from all sort of political walks. Like, I mean, some are obviously more sort of left wing focused. Some are like footbally ones, sports ones, and then some. Not sure I actually entered this one, but it's just called like debate or something else, like debate politics or something like that. And so again, do my usual thing. You get them sort of posting. I'll send them a message, something saying, "Oh, you've got some interesting views. Fancy a chat at some point." Um,
Right.
like, I'd sent it like I think a few weeks ago. He gets back to me. Yeah, actually, I've got time. I could do it today if you like. Again,
Uh,
it's the evening, so I'm thinking, okay, well, I've got a little bit of time. Let's have a chat. And so this person is also left wing.
okay.
They said they're sort of some sort of social democrat.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, okay, this is all right.
It's all
And
right.
we get into talking about fascism, and we're in agreement that Trump is not good. That's great.
Right.
I'm thinking, okay, this is
Yep.
all right.
This isn't a good chat.
Exactly right. But then suddenly we're getting all these sort of, I don't want to call them apologetics, but like he's saying, oh, I don't think America is fascist yet. I don't think Republicans can be called inherently fascist. I don't think we can compare fascism and capitalism, etc., etc. And suddenly we're hearing sort of the similar-ish arguments to what we've heard for a very
Oh.
long time from sort of people saying, well, we're not like being marched off to camps, therefore
It's like status quo lib stuff then.
yeah, exactly, right. And I mean, it's ironic because people are being marched to camps. I mean, I don't know what
Right.
I've been watching ICE over the last like few months. Like, clearly some people are definitely
Yeah.
and I find the sort of that, as you say, that quite liberal position of, well, there's checks and balances. Well, he said that a few times, and it's
Okay.
like, without wanting to be rude, like, open your eyes. I mean, it's not seen what's been going on. Have you not seen Trump basically?
What checks and balances are actually holding him back in what way?
But I think this speaks to another sort of element of if we're looking at how people who aren't necessarily overtly right-wing conservatives still uphold elements of right-wing thought. Because if we're being critical about the systems we have, they have failed to protect us from evil fascist people. You've got someone who is an open criminal who has some very serious allegations just in like of all walks of life over him at the moment.
Right.
But just openly has done terrible things to gain his wealth and power. And yet here he is as president, basically tearing up any remnants of democracy to try and make himself even richer. Like, that isn't a functioning system. How can you, like, he's saying like, oh, well, you know, well, he'll get voted out and there'll be a chance to undo stuff.
Will he?
Well, exactly.
That's the question. Right? Like I was listening to, and I know it's just a comedian, right? Like, but Mark Maron did this bit on, and I just saw the short on Instagram or whatever, and it's just like, what if he doesn't leave?
Yeah.
Like, technically, there's supposed to be somebody that makes him leave, right? Like, but if he just chooses not to, and nobody fucking makes him leave, like, he's just going to stay there and be in power. And what are you going to do about it?
Exactly, right? I mean, we saw literally the last election that he lost, he actively, you know, it got his supporters to storm the Capitol building. It's only really a few circumstances, and the fact that, like, there were some Republicans who still had some agreement with the procedures of the American democratic system.
But at this point,
right? I mean, now Mike Pence is out of the question. It's J.D. Vance who, let's be honest,
they're all like lackeys to him, right? To Trump,
yeah,
or one of his kids, right, or whoever. like, if Trump happens to pass away before the end of his term, I know he's quite old, and who knows what his health is actually like, but like, if he happens to die and like J.D. Vance becomes the leader, like, what if he just does the same thing and just says, I'm not leaving. And like, it's all a fake. Like the election was rigged. And like, what are you actually saying? Checks and balances don't exist. Like,
exactly. Right. And I think that like, that is still, and it's tricky because like there is that wants for the liberal to be correct, right? That, oh, things are fine, it's just a few bad eggs and we'll get rid of them and vote in some better people to fix things.
Some better eggs.
Yeah, some better eggs. And it's sort of a position of privilege, right? Because like if you're able to sort of sit back and like be, okay, things are okay. Firstly, it means that your life is, you've got something, like, it's a bit different if you have a person that is being policed more or facing the most severe costs of like rising food goods and education. Like if you are a teacher and the president is saying, we're going to get rid of the Department of Education, that like you've got bigger problems, right? Exactly, right? Like it's staggering that someone can say that. So I was going to cough quickly.
Yeah. Multiple times throughout our conversation, I have been reminded. So my local reading group, we're reading Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire.
Oh, awesome.
And I'm just in chapter 1, but multiple times in our conversation, I've been reminded of some segment of chapter 1 where he talks about like the kind of like the boss inside, or like the oppressor that you're internalized, and like maybe on some level, like the people that you've talked to, the people that they are influenced by, they need to examine like this internal cop, this internal boss that they've got that says like, no, the status quo is fine because we're all following the rules and whatever. Like,
exactly. Like it's really frustrating. I think I found this one almost more frustrating because the first guy, like, there's loads of people who get suckered in by some identity, like you said, identity politics, right?
Right.
So, you're asked to think about how being white has given you some privilege, and you flip out and be like, no, I won't mind virus. Like, same thing with trans people, same thing with feminism. That's common. But someone who clearly has actually some education on like what is going on in America, right? Because he was critical of Trump. We spoke about fascism, which actually was another interesting thing. But like there was, he didn't pull like the Nazis were actually socialists or any of that
that's
nonsense.
Good. Yeah, that's good.
Had some like understood the history of like the Nazi Party to some extent, and so here is someone who's got some actual like education on some of his stuff, and they're still placing their faith in a system which has been broken for years and now has demonstrated its inability to resist a fascist because look at what's going on. Like, you know,
it's almost like a inherently reformist position, right? Like where like you're not your faith is still in the system as though it exists, right? You don't really see it as like a system that doesn't serve people and serves power instead or serves profit. Where like you and I might look at it and go, okay, but that's all broken. That's all bad. Even before Trump, it was not good for people. And but somebody like that, maybe they're more like say like more of a reformist where like, no, this system is good. It just needs tweaks, right?
Yeah.
Which is.
And I think what came across was because we also spoke a bit about we spoke about authoritarianism and we spoke about the Soviet Union.
Okay.
And I think, again, to use my magnifying glass, my Sherlock Holmes powers, the fear of the Red Scare almost, right? Like the idea that if we didn't have capitalism, the only alternative would be people, well-intentioned people that make mistakes, and then we end up with the Soviet Union, which I think is really misguided. For one, because he said like, oh, there's authoritarianism in many flavors, and by that he meant right-wing people do it instead of left-wing people. And so the natural response then is to think, well, actually, are the people in the Soviet Union A, left-wing, that were responsible for the atrocities, and B, is this situation one that can just take like isolated from all the events that led to things happening in the Soviet Union, right? Because we the idea that Joseph Stalin had any interest in overhauling power structures and liberating people. Like the guy even said himself, under the guise of socialism or communism or whatever, they, Stalin's government did terrible things. And like that should indicate you to the fact that this isn't something
under the guise of
under the guise, that's the key, right? Like, but you can tell that this fear of the Red Scare, right? The fear of the spectre of communism is what keeps people loyal to a system which has failed them so many times and continues to find new ways to fail them in this moment in time.
I mean, I'm not originally obviously many people have said this, but like the United States is one of the most propagandized countries in the world, particularly in their anti-communist perspective, right? Like, and I have lots of disagreements with the Soviet Union. I'm an anarchist. They murdered us, because we were looking for a more pluralistic socialism. Like the Soviet Union was not my panacea of or utopia, but like you say, like you can't separate, like especially Stalin. You can't like say like he was like the communist guy, and also there's a ton of history and like competition with the United States and competition against like the entire Cold War influenced the way that this USSR behaved, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it just kind of blows me away.
Like even the history of the country, like you say, just being so the brutality of the system that came before it. So the Tsarists,
the Tsar,
they were miles behind their European neighbors in like every measure because of how regressive that the Tsarist regime was before the revolution. The fact that the revolution came in the middle of World War One, the fact that right-wing nationalist forces were still like active in the country, and so they had a civil war, which obviously was part of the reason why it was quite bad like conditions there for the first few years of the Union. The fact that the international view that revolutionaries had of like a global worker movement was never able to be realized because of these forces, which then let the power vacuum be filled by someone like Stalin, who obviously
Right.
didn't commit to it. Like, there's so much going on beyond just
Yeah, like
some people were authoritarian and left wing, and therefore
even yeah, it also like you say, like there's so much going on there because like internally the USSR had power struggles within the party, right? Like Trotsky had to flee.
had to get to Mexico.
like it wasn't just automatically like this is the way it was always going to be. This isn't like pure communism, as it should be, I guess.
No, exactly.
And like I don't know, I guess it's interesting because we often get hung up on like this is the example, and like yeah, it wasn't great, but like and there was lots of problems, like say internal struggles, but like what was the United States doing at that time too? Like it wasn't like the 30s were like a fucking amazing in the United States, right? Like it's not like the United States is amazing now. Like they talk about the line they always bring up is bread lines. Well, you literally have bread lines in real life in the 2020s in the United States.
2020s, 1920s, every decade of its existence, right?
Oh my God.
Like it's I always find it hilarious. Well, not hilarious, but it's very interesting to me that these like cheap memes where it's like, this would be your house if you lived in socialism, and it's like some decrepit building. This would be you if you lived in a certain, and it's like you were the breadline and such, and they're using pictures from America. They're using pictures of capitalist society to make their points, and it is so revealing of the position you have to put yourself in to make these arguments. And
I just saw one of those the other day. It was like a homeless encampment, and it says this is the homeless or housing plan under socialism, and it's like this is literally what's happening in the United States under capitalism right now. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
And I know I have a friend who doesn't like that kind of like framing of things. Like he doesn't like to be like, yeah, but that's what's happening now, because it doesn't. I guess he said it doesn't really give a positive outlook of what could be under socialism, which is I guess fair, because I think under socialism we could invest in like social housing and everybody could have like a decent place, even if they all look the same, even if it's like uniform. They're not living on the street anymore, right?
Exactly. So, I always think it's interesting, like to put our not even utopian. You could repurpose so much stuff. So if it's not in the service of capital, it becomes for communities, right? So imagine how much stuff actually is being used just to serve some financial project, which could be returned to people's regular usage. I always think like skyscrapers, how many of them are just like some banks, offices, or some shareholders like portfolio that could be repurposed into housing.
Yep.
You could have suddenly the skyline of cities like London and New York doesn't have to be for people with 7-digit bank accounts.
Right, exactly. I was just watching again, like random video on YouTube. The average rent in New York City is $4,200 a month.
Wow,
that's insane. Who can afford that? Like you have to be. No, that's right. You have to be making a lot of money. Yeah, like that's unreal. I think it was the person was making the argument that everybody in who lives in New York either has rich parents or is selling drugs. Because that's the only way you can afford the rent there.
Interestingly, I saw the almost video from the same theme, but the opposite end of it. I was looking at tiny apartments, which are these actually quite horrible inventions. People who have looked at the housing crisis, the lack of affordable properties and places to stay, and I thought, let's take what we have and just shrink it down some. So these people renting essentially just a room with a toilet installed, like a sink on top of a fridge, maybe like a fold-up mattress, and it's no bigger than a small bedroom, and like their whole life is there. and sometimes it's even less than that, where there's like a shared toilet at the end of a corridor for like 6 or 7 apartments and such. So
Right.
still fairly high rent rates,
Of
but
course. Yeah.
it's, people who have no choice, especially if they're employed in the city and they need to be able to commute like
Wow.
within the day to work. Like it's a shameful way to put people
Yeah.
in. Shameful place to put people in, but that's a
But
reality
this is
of capitalism.
that's right. That's the reality of modern capitalism. And we're supposed to be afraid of like, people living in condos that look too close to similar or whatever under socialism somehow. Like it blows me away.
No, it is staggering. But no, this it went on for longer, and it was a strange conversation. But I do feel at least people like that who can still identify that things are not good are closer to. I don't want to say the red pill or anything like that, but like you're closer to realizing that there is a world that needs to change beyond the dying embers of the capitalist one we're in now.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me so mad that they took red pill away from us. Red pill should be communist pilled, right? Like it should
exactly, be. Exactly. I mean, the Rokowskis would agree as well. So,
yeah, no, yeah, but I guess it's good that people have an awareness, and it's like these No Kings protests, right? Like I'm happy that people are going to these protests and they are, whatever the result is. Like I want people to feel solidarity with one another. I want people to be like, yes, something's wrong here and we need to make it better. We need to believe in democracy. I know their version of democracy is not my version of democracy, but I'm happy that they're out there fighting under the label of No Kings or whatever. But also, are they still just like going out? Like I saw an Instagram today where it's just like they're talking about the person was saying like these aren't actually protests, these are rallies, which is people going and feeling good and getting worked up and whatever about ideas and whatever, and that's good. But if you have a start time at 10 a.m. and a finish time at noon, then that's not really a protest. It's like you're not like challenging anybody, right? Like
yeah, like I see that argument is like it's I think there's two sides to it. I like there is that sense of yes, it is fantastic that you can visibly show like a street in New York or Chicago just packed with thousands of people. Like that is objectively good. And even at these as like a conceptualized as a rally, like people who are there who are sort of more liberal can be pushed left and
right.
sort of informed about many of the things that are going on, and it's just through conversation, right? Just through being exposed to lots of people who have a shared distaste for Trump. But as you say, it's still very liberal coded. Like it's still, if you've agreed with law enforcement what you're doing, if everyone knows what's going to happen on the day, if it's all sort of scheduled and happy, like it's what's being protested. Like they agreed to let you do it, and whilst I think it is like the spectacle of it is still going to be upsetting to the far right and the Trump and stuff, because like they obviously want to have the image of like everyone agrees with them, they're powerful, everyone loves them. At the same time, it's still like if they don't care, they're still going to be in office and they're still gonna be the ones passing horrible law after horrible law. Like,
and this is still the first year of Trump's presidency. I know it feels like it's been a million, but he's still. What's he gonna do now? Like he's gonna like he's already kind of tried to declare anti-fascism as a terrorist organization, as nonsensical as that is. But like, so what's his response to this gonna be? Like he's obviously gonna and the right is gonna frame these people as far left, terrorist, Marxist,
insurgents, all of that.
Insurgents, like so, like, and okay, this kind of drives me a little nuts too. is that some of these protests you had to or these rallies you had to like register to go. So now your name is like
Yeah.
fully on a
On a
list,
list for law enforcement just to
for like the fascists to come and like be like, oh yeah, well you're an anti-fascist, so you're a terrorist, and like
yeah, no,
it just yeah.
it speaks to the fact that I think, as we were just saying, a lot of people are still in that sort of liberal mindset of the country is operated with laws that everyone agrees to, and also I think the more dangerous one, that law enforcement and the state are there to help and not the police, which, as you've just said with that example, you've put your name down on a list because in their mind it's like, well, you know, that way I can show my support and everyone knows that I'm there and it's all in good books, and not now the state have a big list of people to go and check when the next thing happens. That
that's right. Because if anything actually happens, like if there's like any kind of death or like any kind of like say there is a shooter who targets somebody who's right wing again. Well, now you've got a long list of left wingers that are like supposed left wingers that you can go through and be like, do they own guns? Do they own guns? Do they own guns? Like this
exactly.
So much of like, so I listen to like the Knowledge Fight podcast a lot too, and they talk about Alex Jones, who actively should be against all of this stuff that's going on under Trump, right? Like because his whole thing was like government overreach and establishmentism, even though he's like a racist and a white supremacist. That's one of his principles was like the overreach of the government to take our guns and track us all and this and that. And now like those guys are on board with that same project. And it's like, he should be outraged.
Yeah. But it's so, I mean, it was obvious at the time, right? That they were just like frauds and
yes, that's right.
Yeah. We're like,
because they lied in favor of their bullshit in the first place.
Like they frame anything that's not really right wing as like some crackdown of the state against you, when we all know they just want people wanting in power. But it's very frustrating that a lot of people who aren't being paid millions to say right wing lies can't see that there's a massive contradiction between supposedly having libertarian, the free market, let's let the markets decide, and then letting Trump basically spend billions on ICE, the army, to come into cities and take over the crime-laden streets of Washington D.C. or whatever.
Yeah, this whole National Guard into various cities that don't even want it. Like it's like pretty wild stuff to me. And I mean, again, I'm not one who has a lot of faith in the state, and any and law enforcement is not. I've never seen it as on the side of like the people, but like this is pretty blatant, even to that, right? Like this is the sort of thing. Liberals and conservatives should both see this.
Yeah, but they don't. And even some liberals, like that. There's so many still. I mean, I know the Democrat Party, like we were talking about this as well, but the Democrats like are culpable in many ways and share and have been dragged right on many things and sort of overlap with fascistic ideology, just through sort of complicity and like how capitalism has been allowed to become a neoliberal hell, basically. But the fact that the guy is a felon, a criminal, he's broken the law, he cheated throughout his life, he actively tried to throw an election, and you're still like someone like Chuck Schumer saying, I wrote a letter to criticize his actions. Like what is that going to be? The guy, like, what is going to happen from a letter? Like seriously, like great,
you wrote a letter. Good job.
And this is who we're meant to be placing our faith in to be the check and balance to a global fascist movement. Like seriously, it's staggering.
No, I'm sorry. I understand that it's hard to like know what to do all the time too. Like, but there are people that are organizing and working on various projects to create support systems for people that will not be supported by the state anymore. And you don't have to be like fighting cops all the time. And I don't expect everybody to be out there doing that. Although you see a lot of it now. Like there's a lot of people who are like actively fighting against ICE when they're trying to take people. And that's extremely admirable. But I don't expect everybody to do that. But I do expect people to realize what's going on, and that signing petitions or like registering for a rally or writing a letter is no longer even a viable within the system as you have faith in it. Like it's just, these are, maybe they were tools you had when the system was working the way it was supposed to, but it's just not now.
Exactly. And I think that's such an important point. Disobedience is such a powerful tool and doesn't have to be like some GTA fantasy where like you smash your car into a police car or anything. Like we're encouraged to think in dramatic terms, but it can just be something as easy as organizing of your community to make the next ICE raid that bit harder, so that your neighbor's not grabbed off the street and disappeared, right? Like it could be as easy as that, right?
Yeah, it's like the people that are developing these various apps. Like it seems like every time Apple removes one from the Apple Store, another one comes up. Like these apps that tell people where ICE is and where they're doing raids, and like that gives people a chance to escape, right? And that's something that you don't have to physically like confront cops to do that. If you're a person who knows how to use that and it exists on your phone, you can use it and help people out in that way.
Exactly. And there'll be so many more ways to help as well. Like people are adaptive, pragmatic. They'll come up with things and we'll share it. And just even the smallest participation in something like that can be the difference between someone staying with their family or getting vanished to some camp somewhere. So
for sure,
very important.
But we've been talking for about an hour and a half here, so
indeed,
I guess where can people find you?
Well, if you're interested in watching the conversations back for yourself with people who are less left-wing than us, go to Owen MacDonald on YouTube. I'm on Blue Sky as well. And I am on Twitter, but it's a bit of a cesspit these days, so I'd end up to spend too much time there. But yeah, Owen MacDonald on YouTube and on Blue Sky. Right
on. And I guess if you are already watching this, then you know where to find the Skeptical Leftist. So, follow me on social media, and my Linktree is always in the show notes. So, right on.